We are going to bust those myths today. I don't know why I'm gesturing so much. I do know why. I had cold brew and a matcha latte. Also, Italian. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Let Me Learn Ya. My name is Lana McCarthy. I'm a registered dietitian with a master's in human nutrition, and today we're going to have a smackdown challenge between canned and frozen vegetables and fresh, organic, whatever vegetables. So you need more fruits and vegetables in your life, but you're on a budget, whether that's a time budget or a financial budget or a just don't have the emotional capacity budget. I think we're all going through that lately, right? I know I am. I hit a wall yesterday, you guys. Hit a freaking wall. You go to the grocery store and you buy a whole bunch of fresh fruits and vegetables and you're like, oh my God, I'm totes gonna eat these and I'm gonna be the healthiest person on the planet. And then you stick the veggies in your fridge and you put the fruits in a bowl and you blink and the fruits are moldy and you're like, crap, I totally wasted those. You keep having cravings like Whataburger, but then you remember that Whataburger was bought out by a crappy company in Chicago and so they totally ruined Whataburger. So instead you're gonna go, I don't know, you don't know yet, maybe In-N-Out. And you completely forget about those vegetables in your fridge and they just slowly rot and die until one day you're like, what's that smell? And it's the spinach that you bought that's just turned into an alien-like being. Just me? Well, have I got a solution for you? It is canned and frozen vegetables. I know, a lot of my clean, soaped up foodie friends are like, ugh, canned and frozen vegetables, you gotta be kidding me, right? But y'all, they have gotten a bad rap for no reason. But they're not fresh. They're in cans. BPA. They aren't as nutritious. They're coated in sugar and salt. So these are all mostly myths that we are gonna bust today in our canned and frozen produce versus fresh produce smackity smackdown challenge of 2022.
Fight!
Fresh produce, in my opinion, and my professional expertise and my genius, fresh wins this round. But not by much. For anybody who has consistently purchased fresh produce, you know it's kind of a crapshoot, right? Whether you're gonna get grapes that are so sweet and delicious, it's like eating candy, or if you're gonna purchase those same exact grapes a month or two later and they taste like water. There's hardly any sweetness at all. Sometimes you can get really dry, unripe, orangey looking tomatoes, and other times you can get super fresh, delicious, vibrant red ones. That being said, most of the time when you do some home cooking, fresh trumps frozen or canned. Fresh also just taste better on their own. Would you rather snack on a fresh apple that you can bite your teeth into and get all that nice crispity crunchiness? Or would you like to just eat apples out of a can? The processing that happens to get these fresh fruits and veggies into their canned and frozen form involve blanching, heating. These veggies are cooked and then they're frozen. So the flavor never tastes as good as a good fresh fruit and vegetable. For the people I mentioned before, where you forget that veggies are in your fridge, you're not really feeling them, you're not really craving them during the time that you have them, and then they just go bad. Same thing with fruit. Frozen and canned wins hands freaking down. So frozen fruit, depending on the fruit, can last about 12 months in your freezer. That's a lot longer than a peach that disintegrates in a matter of a week, turning into mold. And then for veggies, it's about 8 to 10 months kicking it in your freezer. So they're there when you need them for almost a year to a year. With regards to canned, high acidic foods like fruits and tomatoes can last canned about 18 months, where low acidic foods like vegetables canned can last 2 to 5 freaking years, y'all. they got your back. They ain't going nowhere. You don't have to worry about canned and frozen produce going bad very quickly or feeling like you have to eat them right now or else they're gonna go bad. This is a big one, right? It's one of the reasons why people argue not to eat canned and frozen vegetables. This is kind of tied because this is a weird, murky area, and I'll tell you why. It is very hard to measure nutritional content in produce because it varies so widely depending on numerous factors, such as how the food was cultivated, how it was watered, what kind of fertilizer did they use, was it exposed to sunlight, was it not, when was it harvested, was it picked before ripeness, was it picked at ripeness, how long was it shipped, how long was it stored, how long did it sit in the store. All of these things influence the level of nutrients in these foods, as well as time allowed for those nutrients to degrade. So it's very hard for us to collectively say a tomato grown on a farm and placed in a store has a higher nutrient value than a tomato put in a can, because that one tomato may have a different nutritional value from the thousands of other tomatoes that come from thousands of other farms and other places and had different shipping things. We may be able to generally ickily compare, but it's not very valid. So I'm not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. Here's what we do know. We know that canned and frozen produce are frozen, processed, whatever, canned immediately after they're harvested. That stops and then drastically slows the rate at which those nutrients degrade, which preserves the nutrients, because once a food item is picked, those nutrients start degrading. The rate at which they degrade is different depending on the nutrient we're talking about and the type of produce. We do know with the canning process, specifically with the heating that has to occur, specific vitamins such as the wimpy, wamby-pamby, water-soluble vitamins such as vitamin C and the Bs get destroyed. Not completely, but they're degraded a bit. While fresh is more likely to have the vitamin C and the Bs intact if they didn't go through crazy long shipping or were exposed to heat or what have you. To be clear, there's still vitamin C, and some manufacturers add vitamin C into the canned foods to help preserve them, while a fresh product in some instances is picked before it's ripe because it needs to make a trip that could be hundreds, thousands, God knows how many miles away. It then sits in the back of a store for an unknown amount of time before it's then placed on a shelf and then sits on a shelf for an unknown amount of time. It's one of the reasons why I suggest that people try to purchase local over organic. I know I'm gonna be attacked. I don't care. The benefits that you think you're getting from organic does not outweigh the benefits you would get from eating a food that was recently harvested and made a very short travel time. These bitches are tied because there are too many variables involved that are unknown, number one. And number two, while fresh may have some benefit of possibly higher vitamin C and Bs, canned and fresh still retain the majority of their nutrients and could possibly, in some cases, as some studies have shown, have more nutrients than the fresh. So this one's kind of tied. It's just a bing, 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 back and forth like a ping pong ball match. There is a snap factor, a crispiness factor, a non-mushy factor that fresh produce has that frozen and canned generally does not. You will never find a crisp canned apple or a non-slightly mushy carrot that has been frozen or canned. This is because processing these foods alters the plant cell. For instance, when you freeze a plant food, the water within the cells swells and that stretches out the cell so that then when it's reheated and that water shrinks back down, you get different texture because the shape of the plant cell has now been changed. It's why I generally only use frozen or canned in things that kind of mask the texture, such as soups, stews, smoothies. You want seasonal pumpkin? Not if you're getting fresh. Random lychee fruit from Hawaii? Not if you want it super fresh. I know randomly they'll get these things in, but what if you want it right now? That's the beauty of canned and frozen. Canned, you can get pumpkin whenever you want. Lychee,
Lychee.
You want something that's out of season? You can get it because those suckers last 2 to 5 years. Canning and freezing makes a wide variety of fruits and vegetables available to you whenever you want, in or out of season. Reason why they were kind of close is because it depends on the situation. So for cooking, if you're cooking meals, hands down, frozen and canned wins. They're available for you at all times. You don't have to worry about them going bad in your cupboard or anything. They come prepped and cooked for you. So it cuts down on cleanup time, prepping time, washing, all that stuff. You get canned peas, you dump it in a bowl. You gotta use your can opener maybe, you gotta rip open a bag, boom, whatever. That is insanely convenient. And now more than ever, they're even more convenient. You can purchase pre-seasoned, pre-flavored veggies with sauces in them where you just dump them in a bag. You can heat them in the bag in the microwave if you want. I've been discovering lately, which is highly convenient, is mixes that are specific to the dish that you're wanting to make. Fajita mixes that are green and red and yellow peppers with onions, or a stir fry mix that has snap peas and broccoli and carrots and onion. But if you want a fresh and delicious snack, canned and frozen don't win. What would you prefer to grab for a snack? An apple, cut it up into some slices, dip it in peanut butter or whatever, delicious, crispy yum yum? Or would you rather crank open a can of apples and eat apples out of a can? Or dip frozen mushy broccoli into ranch dip versus crisp, fresh, delicious broccoli, except maybe dumping like canned fruit in like cottage cheese or something, or yogurt. But as I said, frozen and canned still win, even though it's close. Frozen and canned produce is simply just more stable. They don't require a lot of, light handling, perfect lighting, ripening with ethylene gas. They don't need a lot of fancy packing and delicate handling to get them to the store. And therefore, pound per pound, canned and frozen produce is cheaper than fresh. Additionally, you are not paying for a lot of stuff you won't use. So how many of you buy broccoli, oranges, things like that, where you peel off the skin? You paid for that skin, but you didn't eat it. Or a lot of you don't eat the stalks of the broccoli, which you should, by the way, and that's a whole other subject. You're chopping off stalk and tossing it in the garbage. You paid for that stalk. But with frozen and canned, you are only purchasing the food parts that you will eat. How many times have you gone through the scenario that I mentioned at the beginning, where you buy a huge container of leafy greens, fully intending to eat it, and it turns to just a cesspool of mush before you even blink, and you toss it out? I can say from personal experience, I have thrown away so much produce because I forget about it, or I'm busy, I fully intend to eat it, and then it just goes bad. But frozen and canned last for so stinking long, it's very difficult to waste them. And even if they go bad, it's mainly just the flavor or the texture that's gone bad. It's not like it'll unalive you if you eat it. I think that whether you choose canned or fresh or frozen or what have you, depends on you and your situation. Who do I think could benefit from eating fresh? People who don't really have to worry about funds that much. People who hardly ever waste food. So you have enough time and you know yourself well enough that you will not let that spinach or those greens turn into mushy, nasty messes. People who have access to produce, fresh produce. There are millions of Americans who do not have that option. People who have the time or the budget, let's say, mentally or actual time to prep and plan and clean and do all of that stuff. And for people who are very sensitive to slight and subtle shifts of flavor or consistency, then you're probably not going to be down with the canned or frozen. So who do I think canned and frozen are good for? Definitely people who are on a budget and still want to eat healthy. People who have limited time or just mental capacity to plan and prep and clean and shop and do all that stuff. Like people who know that even though they're trying to eat healthy, they do frequently end up wasting food because they're just not in the mood for eating healthy. You're just not at that point yet. Canned and frozen would be a great option for you because they'll always be there when you need them, like a good friend, like State Farm. People who have limited access to fresh produce, clearly, canned and frozen is an excellent option for you. And people who are totally fine with occasionally compromising taste a wee bit, maybe texture a wee bit here and there. So I will be making a video at some point that shares a lot of tips on how to incorporate more canned and frozen fruits and veggies into your food routine. But for now, I'll just say that if you're starting off using frozen and canned produce, definitely think about using them in things like soups, stews, stir fries, things that have sauces and other things in them, blending up fruits and smoothies, adding canned fruit to things like yogurt parfaits, cottage cheese, using them in baking items. Basically, unless it's corn or peas, I believe, corn or peas frozen or canned on their own, like to me, are fine, just eating them by themselves. But unless they're those, I wouldn't really recommend for starting out to use frozen or canned produce as like a star on its own. Mix it in with other things. That way, the slight texture differences and the slight flavor differences, you won't notice as much. Definitely look for low or no sodium options if you can. Low sugar for fruit, ones that are in their own fruit juice or just water, that could benefit you. If you're worried about BPA, there are all kinds of options now to BPA. You can just stick to the frozen produce. Just know if you're choosing cans that are BPA free, they're just using a different chemical that hasn't even been as studied as BPA. That's a whole other subject that I'm gonna have to tackle at some point. I would also suggest still keeping in your rotation some fresh fruits and veggies if you can, just to make sure, just in case it's a problem, but it's probably not, that you're still getting that vitamin C and you're still getting your B vitamins. Although if you're eating anything that has refined flour in it, you're getting your B vitamins. The final results, y'all, of this Smackdown challenge was that frozen and canned kicked Fresh's butt.
Fatality.
Out of 8 rounds, frozen and canned won 5 and tied 1. So nothing wrong with frozen and canned. In many cases, they could be better for you depending on your situation. So less play a hatin' and more incorporating. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave your comments below if you love canned and frozen, if you hate them, if you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm a shill for Green Giant. Till then, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye. We are gonna busta. Okay, let's do this. Okay, there's wasps everywhere, you guys. I feel like I'm in a horror movie, but instead of the birds, it's the wasps, and it's the Texas version. Okay. What am I doing? fresh. Where am I? You guys don't care about this, and I don't know why I'm doing this. It's just giving me more things to edit, and this is why I hate myself.